Hey guys, just want to check in and say I'm thinking about everybody, and I want to follow up on a post that we made on our Edge School IGTV page and YouTube page. There's not a perfect overlap between the two sites, so for us that got some pretty good traction, and so I thought I would just drop that on here as well. If you've already heard that, you can turn this off right now. It's going to be the exact same message. But the three things I went over, and number one was just setting up a life for yourself right now that is going to help you be productive in whatever facet you need to be productive in, whether it's as an athlete, as an employee, as a parent, whatever it is. I think right now is more important than ever that we develop some structure or some systems for our life. That could take the form of a schedule, so mapping out your day or mapping out your week to kind of fit all the facets of your life in there, or maybe there's some rules and boundaries around that too. So maybe it's an internet thing, maybe it's a social media thing, maybe there's some restrictions that you build into there. But in any case, structure is going to be very productive for you. As I mentioned in the previous video, whether it's going through school or having a sports season or having to show up for work every day, we always have a schedule in place for ourselves, whether it's imposed by us or someone else, that helps us keep our time and potentially our thoughts and the boxes of our life, in order, in the proper sequence, and structured for sure. So because we don't have that right now, and there's no end in sight, I think it's really important that we develop that for ourselves to help us increase our productivity and also sanity at this point. The next 2 points were relative to kind of just your physical practice, or your physical self, and that will lead into your mental well-being as well. And number one is just moving. And a reference point we often use for movement is steps. And we often say that 10,000 steps a day is kind of a prerequisite for being human. And in high performance athletics, we never talk about first principles of general health. And for me, I think a first principle, or the first principle of general health is making sure we're moving. Obviously nutrition and sleep play a pretty important role as well, but being that I'm a little bit physically biased, I think that movement is massively important for everyone. So try to get your 10,000 steps in a day. Probably everybody who's listening to this has some sort of device already at their disposal that'll count steps for them in some capacity or another. The third point is, especially if you're an athlete in this situation, don't worry about specific adaptations. You need to just focus on the things that you can control in the environment that you're in right now. And if the environment you're in right now doesn't allow you to be super specific with your training, you can still do something. I think all we can really worry about or think about is the things that are underneath our control right now, and use the parameters, use the boundaries of what your current environment lends to you, and reach out to me or build out the best plan you can with the boundaries, or with the guidelines, or with the access you have to equipment at this point in time right now. And everyone is in a very similar situation. You don't need to worry about falling behind. We're all going to get out of this eventually, and we'll all get caught back up. But yeah, just focus on getting your workouts in rather than trying to be ultra specific with them. So until I see you next time, stay well, stay healthy.